Some connections don't begin with fireworks. They begin with confusion. You keep telling yourself she's probably just being friendly. You replay conversations while driving home. You remember the way she smiled, then immediately argue with yourself that she smiles at everyone. And yet, something about the way she looks at you lingers longer than it should. It's a strange place to be, especially when there's an age gap between you, because suddenly, every small moment feels dangerous to interpret. Maybe she's younger, and you don't want to imagine something that isn't there. Maybe she's older, and part of you assumes she'd never see you that way. So you stay quiet. You convince yourself it's safer not to know. If you've ever found yourself trapped between hope and doubt like that, subscribe. Not because someone else has all the answers, but because understanding people begins with understanding the quiet moments most of us overlook. One of the biggest misunderstandings about attraction is that people expect it to arrive loudly. It usually doesn't. In many cases, attraction enters a room wearing the clothes of friendship. It hides inside ordinary conversations, inside shared laughter, inside little habits that nobody else notices. Imagine this. You're talking in a group. Everyone is laughing. The conversation moves quickly. People interrupt each other. Someone tells a joke. You notice her laughing with everyone else. But when the room settles, her eyes come back to you. Just for a second. Not because you're speaking, because she's checking whether you noticed the same moment she did. That tiny glance rarely proves attraction by itself. People make eye contact for countless reasons. But sometimes, it becomes part of a much larger pattern. And psychology is often less interested in isolated moments than repeated ones, because feelings usually reveal themselves through consistency, not intensity. That's where many men become confused. They're waiting for obvious signals. A dramatic confession, a flirtatious compliment, some unmistakable invitation. Life doesn't usually work like that, especially when an age gap exists. An age difference often creates caution on both sides. She might wonder whether you're interested. She might worry about how other people would judge her. She might question whether she's imagining chemistry that isn't really there. And you're probably asking yourself exactly the same questions. It's almost funny. Two people quietly protecting themselves from rejection while accidentally hiding their interest from each other. I've seen this happen more times than most people realize. Not because people are dishonest, because they're careful. Careful people don't always move toward attraction. Sometimes they circle around it. They test it, very gently. There's another moment that often slips past unnoticed. You're telling a story. Not an impressive story, just something ordinary. Maybe about work, maybe about your weekend. Everyone else hears the facts. She hears the emotion underneath. She asks about one tiny detail nobody else cared enough to notice. What happened after that? It sounds like a simple question, but sometimes it isn't curiosity about the story. Sometimes it's curiosity about you. There's a quiet difference. People who only enjoy conversation remember what you said. People who are becoming emotionally invested often remember how you felt while saying it. That difference changes everything. But it also creates another mystery, because once someone begins paying attention to your inner world, their behavior starts changing in ways that don't immediately look romantic. And that's exactly where the next sign begins. There's something quietly beautiful about the way attraction changes a person's attention. Not louder, just narrower. The room stays the same, the people stay the same, but somehow she keeps noticing you. You arrive a few minutes late and she looks up almost immediately. You change your haircut. Nothing dramatic. Most people don't mention it. She does. You seem a little tired one day, and before you've said more than a few words, she asks if everything's okay. That question can be easy to dismiss. Maybe she's just kind. Maybe she asks everyone, and sometimes that's true. But when someone begins to care about you in a deeper way, they often start collecting tiny pieces of you without realizing it. Not because they're trying to, because their attention naturally settles where their emotions already are. It's a quiet shift, almost invisible, until you notice the pattern. I've spoken to many men who tell me the same story. I didn't think she liked me. Then, almost as an afterthought, they'll mention something like, she remembered the name of my dog, or she asked how my mother's appointment went, 3 weeks later. They say it casually, as if it isn't important. But think about that for a moment. Our minds are flooded with information every day. Most details disappear almost as quickly as they arrive. When someone consistently remembers the small things you barely remember saying yourself, it often means those moments mattered to them, not because they forced themselves to remember, because emotionally meaningful information tends to stay with us. Still, memory alone doesn't mean attraction. People can care deeply without wanting romance. That's why it's never one sign. It's the combination that matters. Now imagine another scene. You're talking together. The conversation drifts into something personal, not painfully deep, just real. Maybe you admit you've been questioning your career. Maybe you laugh about an insecurity you've never completely outgrown. You don't expect much from saying it. In fact, you almost regret mentioning it. But instead of changing the subject, she slows down. There's a pause. Not an awkward one. The kind that says she's choosing her next words carefully. Then she shares something vulnerable about herself too. This is where many people unknowingly step across an invisible line. Friendship often stays in safe territory. Movies, work, weekend plans, weather. But emotional closeness grows differently. Someone risks revealing a piece of themselves, and the other person quietly meets them there. Not because they have to, because it suddenly feels safe. Safety is an interesting word. People usually think attraction is about excitement, butterflies, chemistry, fast heartbeats. Those feelings can absolutely exist, but lasting attraction often grows from something much calmer, the feeling that you don't have to perform, that you don't have to constantly impress. That silence isn't uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed how rare that is? To sit beside someone, say almost nothing, and still feel understood. Many men spend years believing they need perfect words, perfect confidence, perfect timing. Yet sometimes what creates connection isn't saying something brilliant. It's staying present when the conversation becomes quiet. Most people rush to fill silence. Someone who feels emotionally drawn to you often doesn't mind it. In fact, she may seem surprisingly comfortable just existing beside you. No entertainment, no performance, just presence. And presence can become incredibly intimate. But there's another shift that usually happens before anyone admits their feelings. It's subtle, a little confusing, sometimes even frustrating. Because instead of moving closer in an obvious way, she begins pulling back, just enough to make you wonder why. That part catches a lot of men off guard. You think that if someone likes you, they'll simply move closer, call more, text more, find more reasons to be around you. Sometimes they do, but sometimes the opposite happens for a while. Not because the feelings disappeared, because the feelings suddenly became real. Picture this. The two of you have been talking easily for weeks, maybe months. Conversations flow without effort. You tease each other. She laughs at things that honestly weren't that funny. You catch her watching you when she thinks you're not looking. Then, one day, she feels different. Her replies are a little shorter. She seems distracted. She leaves a conversation earlier than usual. Immediately, your mind starts filling in the blanks. I said something wrong. She lost interest. I imagined everything. Our minds don't like uncertainty. They'd rather believe a painful story than admit they don't know what's happening. But people are rarely that simple. When emotions become stronger, they also become riskier. If she's beginning to wonder whether this friendship means more to her than she'd planned, she may need space to understand her own feelings. That doesn't automatically mean she's hoping for a relationship. It simply means people sometimes pause when their emotions become more complicated. An age gap can make that hesitation even stronger. Maybe she's asking herself questions she'd never had to ask before. Would people understand? Would this actually work? Am I reading too much into this? You might be asking yourself those exact same questions at the very same time. Neither of you says them, so both of you mistake silence for distance. It's one of the quiet ironies of human relationships. The fear of rejection often makes two interested people look uninterested. There's another behavior that's easy to misunderstand. She starts asking questions that don't seem connected. Not about dating, not about romance, about your future, your family, how you spend weekends, whether you've ever lived somewhere else, whether you want children someday, what kind of life feels peaceful to you. On the surface, they're just conversations. Underneath, sometimes she's trying to imagine whether your worlds could actually fit together. People often do this without realizing it. When someone begins seeing you differently, they don't just notice who you are today. They quietly wonder who you could become tomorrow. Again, this doesn't prove attraction by itself. Curious people ask thoughtful questions too. But when those questions arrive alongside steady attention, emotional openness, and moments that feel unexpectedly personal, the picture begins to change. Now let me tell you about something that almost never gets talked about. Jealousy, not the loud kind, not dramatic arguments or possessiveness. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the almost invisible kind. You mention another woman, maybe a co-worker, maybe someone who complimented you. She smiles. She says something supportive. Nothing seems unusual, but her energy shifts just a little. Maybe she asks one extra question. Maybe she becomes quieter than she was 5 minutes ago. Maybe she changes the subject a bit too quickly. That reaction doesn't automatically mean romantic feelings. Everyone experiences moments of insecurity or comparison for different reasons. But when someone consistently reacts differently the moment another potential romantic interest enters the conversation, it's worth paying attention, not jumping to conclusions, just noticing. Real attraction often whispers before it ever speaks, and whispers are easy to miss if you're only listening for declarations. Still, there is one sign that quietly outweighs almost everything we've talked about so far. Most men notice it only after it's already been happening for a long time. Once you see it, so many confusing moments suddenly begin to make sense, and it has almost nothing to do with flirting. It usually begins on an ordinary day. Nothing romantic is happening. No candlelit dinner, no dramatic confession. You're simply living your life. Maybe you've had a frustrating day at work. Maybe you're unusually quiet. Maybe you don't even realize you've been staring at your coffee for a little too long. Most people will notice your mood if it's obvious. They'll ask, "Everything okay?" You smile. You say you're fine. The conversation moves on, but she doesn't move on. An hour later, she circles back. "Are you sure you're okay?" Not because she's trying to fix you, because your answer didn't match what she felt from you. That difference matters. Many people hear words. Someone who is becoming emotionally attached often starts noticing what lies underneath the words. The pause before you answer. The smile that never quite reaches your eyes. The way your voice sounds just a little flatter than usual. She isn't reading your mind. No one can do that. But when we care deeply about someone, we naturally become more sensitive to small emotional changes. We pay closer attention because that person's well-being begins to matter to us. Think about the people you truly care about. Sometimes you know something is wrong before they say a single word. Not because you have a special gift, because you've learned their rhythm. Attraction often begins teaching us someone else's rhythm long before we admit how much we care. There's another moment that quietly slips past most men. You accomplish something. Maybe it's a promotion. You finish a difficult project. You finally buy the car you've wanted. Or maybe it's something much smaller that means a lot to you. Without thinking, she's one of the first people you want to tell. Now ask yourself something. Why her? Out of everyone you know, why did your mind go there? Relationships often reveal themselves long before labels do. Sometimes your heart has already started making someone emotionally important, while your mind is still insisting, "We're just friends." The same can happen for her. When something exciting happens in her life, does she reach out to you? Not because she needs advice, not because you can solve the problem, simply because she wants you to know. That desire to include someone in everyday life is often more meaningful than grand romantic gestures. Real closeness grows through ordinary moments shared consistently. Not constant excitement. Ordinary Tuesday afternoons, random voice notes, pictures of a sunset, a funny mistake at the grocery store, a song that reminded her of something you once said. None of those moments scream attraction. Together, They create a quiet, emotional home. And there's something else I've noticed over the years. When a woman begins imagining you as more than a friend, she may start inviting you into parts of her life that aren't polished, not the version she shows everyone, the real one. She lets you see her when she's tired, when she's stressed, when she's uncertain. She stops trying to appear endlessly interesting. Oddly enough, that's often a sign of growing trust. People perform for strangers. They relax around people who feel emotionally safe. Safety doesn't remove attraction. In many cases, it deepens it. Because lasting connection isn't built on constantly impressing each other. It's built on slowly discovering that neither person has to pretend. Still, there's one final piece that ties all of this together. It's the one sign that people almost always overlook because it doesn't happen in a single conversation. It unfolds quietly over time. And once you recognize it, you'll understand why genuine attraction is rarely about chasing someone, and much more about the direction they naturally keep choosing, again and again. If you've stayed with me this long, you may have noticed something. None of these signs were about perfect pickup lines. None depended on decoding every text message or treating every smile like hidden proof. Because real attraction rarely lives inside a single moment. It lives in direction. That's the final sign. She keeps choosing you. Not once, not when it's convenient, over time. You start noticing that when she has something funny to share, you're one of the first people she tells. When something disappoints her, she feels comfortable letting you see it. When life becomes busy, somehow the connection doesn't disappear. It bends a little. It pauses. But it has a way of finding its way back. That kind of consistency is easy to underestimate. We live in a world that celebrates dramatic gestures, big confessions, grand surprises. Movies have taught us that love arrives all at once. Real life often whispers instead. It grows through repeated choices, through showing up, through remembering, through wondering how the other person is doing on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. And that's why so many men miss what's happening right in front of them. They're looking for certainty. Psychology doesn't usually offer certainty. People are wonderfully complicated. A woman may care deeply and still decide that friendship is the right path. She may feel attracted but hesitate because the timing doesn't feel right. She may need longer to understand what she's feeling. Or she may simply enjoy a close friendship without wanting anything more. That's why these signs are never a checklist that guarantees romance. They're invitations to pay attention with curiosity instead of assumption. There's a quiet confidence in that. You stop trying to force an answer. You stop analysing every message until 2 a.m. You stop asking, how do I make her like me? And you begin asking something much healthier. What is this connection naturally becoming? That question changes your energy. People often feel when they're being observed like a puzzle that needs solving. They also feel when they're being seen as a person. Those are very different experiences. Ironically, the more secure you become, the easier it is for genuine attraction to grow. Not because confidence magically creates feelings, because emotional safety gives both people room to be honest. If she's interested, she won't have to fight through layers of pressure to show it. If she isn't, you'll be able to accept that without believing it says something about your worth. That's emotional maturity, and it's surprisingly attractive in its own right. Maybe that's the part we don't talk about enough. The goal was never to become better at reading women. The deeper goal is learning to relate to people without fear controlling every decision. To notice instead of assume, to communicate instead of imagine, to respect both your own feelings and hers. An age gap doesn't automatically create a meaningful relationship, and it doesn't automatically prevent one either. What matters far more is something less dramatic and much harder to fake. Mutual respect, emotional honesty, shared values, a willingness to listen. The patience to let trust grow at its own pace. Because when someone truly wants more than friendship, you usually won't have to drag the relationship forward. You'll notice something much quieter. She keeps making room for you in her life, again and again and again. Not perfectly, not every single day, but consistently enough that you no longer have to wonder whether you're the only one moving closer. And perhaps that's the most comforting realization of all. The healthiest connections don't leave you exhausted from chasing certainty. They gradually replace uncertainty with trust, one small, ordinary moment at a time. If this conversation made you recognize someone, or perhaps recognize something in yourself, let me know in the comments. Sometimes the smallest story reveals the biggest truth, and you may discover you're not nearly as alone in these questions as you once believed.